what does the referendum mean, so that the people can understand what does the referendum mean. We'll start with that.
We have a new document that is it's a popular document in our country now, known as the Building Bridges Initiative, which started as the people that were steering that wheel wanted us to change the constitution, basically. I'm just giving it as you may give the layman. And there was a progress to that where we ended up asking for an amendment on our 2010 constitution. So currently, that is what I would call that is what we are going actually to do on the referendum. We're going to amend the constitution.
Okay.
If you're familiar with politics from outside Kenya, maybe from the US, you can understand that they're on their 15th amendment right now. So the constitution, the spirit of the constitution has to change. But the question is it time to change our current constitution? Yes, in a nutshell.
Right, right. So, in further to continue deeply and on a deeper level to understand, or as we gear towards having the referendum, right? There were delving into the counties. There was resistance. There were counties that were, for lack of a better word, they were bidded to the Hustler Nation. They had bought into the Hustler Nation initiative. They were the Hustler Nation bought, for lack of a better word. And now we have 21 counties having passed on, agreed on the passing of the BBI bill.
41.
So 41, sorry, 41. So why the laxness in it? Why have counties now become relaxed on it? Why have they agreed into the passing of the BBI? What are your thoughts on the relaxing of the counties?
Okay, first of all, again, thank you for the opportunity. I'll start by the first question, whereby you asked about the referendum and the process we are currently in. Let me say that it is a legal process and a constitutional process that has been stipulated to be there. The constitution has to be amended at least, I think, 10 years. After every 10 years, we have to review. And that's where we start by the bill. A bill is a proposal to change the constitution, and of which the bill has to undergo certain stages. As we can see that currently we are at the county assemblies. From there we'll go to the parliament, plus the senate, and then to the president, and now to the people as a referendum. So it is a constitutional process, whereby we have to undertake all those processes for us to arrive at referendum. So it is a process to change the constitution. Secondly, and actually I didn't know that I will be jumping to the alignment and the functions that are pro and against the BBI. But anyway, because you have thrown us there, let me start by saying that politics, again, it is a matter of interest. And of course, we say that through certain processes, that's when we know that how the country is in terms of aligning to a certain idea or not. And to begin with, currently we have the issue that brought us to this point of what we call handshake. And handshake, it was, or it is perceived to have come from a point of, trying to mitigate the problems that we normally encounter during or after post-election violence. And myself, I have been part and parcel of maybe being an agent of peace during the post-election violence. And taking you back to 2017, I was part of business community as a student leader and as an influential youth, trying to talk to the youth from the other side of Nyanza, coming from Mount Kenya myself. So my role and the role of other such like-minded and young people who partook in that process was for us to try to preach peace, to try to talk to our peers who are on the other side. You remember we used to have Tuesday, maandamano, and
Machozi Tuesday.
Machozi Tuesday, and then Thursday.
Yes.
So that's where the process came. That's how the process came about, whereby after people fighting over a certain period of time, and I think over months, it is when the two principals, the president and the former prime minister, so that it is important for them to sit down and maybe try to come up with an issue or a solution which will take us to maybe a better future when it comes to political processes, which political violence is part of the political process. So that's where we are at this particular time. In regard to different functions, supporting or opposing, I would say that is part of political process, because there are some people who see that it is important for us to undertake the process for the coming general election. And then again, we have another function which think it is not necessary as a matter of procedure, because we might think we are undertaking a normal procedure, but there is a function which believes it is not necessary, pertaining to maybe the cost of it, or as per the agendas which are already there inscribed in that document. So that's why we have different camps, Kieleweke and Tangatanga. So Tangatanga, everyone knows what they stand for. They are against the BBI for reasons they have articulated in their different platforms, call it in the rallies there, or in the TV. We have seen majority of the legislators who are supporting the BBI. They have tried to articulate that for them it is not making any economic sense for us to have the referendum bill of 2020 at this particular time, when you have an issue with, or when we have a global economic crisis. Everyone knows about that. We are at a very hard time whereby we have an economic global crisis, and at the same time we have a health global crisis. So as a matter of procedure in other countries and culture, looking at the countries that have advanced in terms of economy and politics, we say that first of all, when we have such crisis, it is good for us maybe to focus or capitalize on the most important needs of the people. That's why I think that's where Tangatanga is coming from. For them, they are opposed because they think people have so many problems. People don't have masks. People are dying because of food. Doctors are dying because of what we call PPEs. We have not capitalized on that. Why do we bring referendum? To help food? Because I think if at all maybe half of our population was to die because of COVID or hunger, I think that reform will be as useless as I don't know how to finish. Anyway, so I have just said, for the other side, Kieleweke side, definitely, as you know, the culture of the government. It is the culture of the government and the administration that any idea coming from maybe the executive, for instance, those people who are part and parcel of running the government, the administration, you call, starting from the chief, the deputy county commissioner, going up, the police, plus the ministry now of interior and internal security. It is the culture of them to join any conversation that is coming from the government. But now there are those legislators who have again aligned themselves to supporting the BBI. I think for me, as a person, giving a personal opinion, I would think again it is a matter of political interest. Someone saying maybe when I'm close to Uhuru Kenyatta, whether the reform that he's pushing, whether it is making sense or not, I think I would be politically correct, and maybe I will get my seat back when it comes to 2022 politics. So that's what I think.
I think I can add a little bit on what my colleague is saying. Yes. I think we should change how the political arrangement in this country is. Because first, we've seen a lot of arm twisting for these MCAs to vote in favor of the document. Because why is it? I've gone through the document, I've gone through the amendment bill, and the spirit and the desire of the guys that are driving that force, the spirit is very good and the desire is right, but the reality on the ground, we are, as my colleague has said, we are going through an economic crisis in the country. So the only solution that we need in that document is not a solution that is political oriented. It's a solution that gives us an economy freedom and gives us also a way that we should feel that as young people, we have opportunities that are coming towards us. I think, I know most of us are spiritually inclined. Listen to these words of Paul. Paul said that we don't fight against flesh and blood, but against spirituality, spirits, principalities and powers that are seated in high places. So we should make sure that as a nation, we should stay away from making mistakes that will cost us in the long run. Because if it will take us another 10 years to rewrite this history that we are going to get ourselves in, I think we should be very careful as a nation on what we prioritize.
I will say this. First, I will correct you. One, this document is popular on TV, not on the ground. Even here, majority of us, we have only read the summarized document. Because these people, the document that is out is the one that is summarized, not the original document. Whereby, we need to ask ourselves, why the summary document only that is out? Number two, the BBI, if it goes through, it's going to take us in a huge crisis between the time we're having a referendum and the time we're going to have a general election. The lawyers here, they can confirm to me, if it's true or wrong, that we should have a referendum 1 year, 8 months to the next general election. How many months do we have to the next general election? We should review our boundaries 1 year, 8 months still to the next general election. How many months do we have to the next generation? So this thing doesn't add sense. It's either we are going to postpone the election of the year 2022 to another year so that we can recapture this crisis that we are going through. Because we cannot review the boundaries, then go to elections. We cannot have a referendum and go to elections. We have to choose the right way to do it. Or we do all the BBI and the main election in one election.
Yes. But
Number two,
to be practical.
Yes.
Because one thing that we should really be able to weigh our current position. Are we going to the referendum? Yes. One thing that I want to support you is, you said that the current document is not popular on the ground. That one I can attest to. Because the MCAs, they are, because of the human contact, when you look at, they're very close to the executive, because these are legislatures. Yeah. So they have the added advantage of having the human contact with the stewards of the document. But when you go to the ground, the narrative is quite different. So the question is not if we will do the referendum. We are very certain that the referendum will happen.
I've agreed. I've said.
And Sam, wait for a minute. Just weigh on what you've been saying, Sam. Just a little bit. I want to support you. Number one, I think we are trying to push this narrative based on maybe the things that are found. And I agree with you. The whole idea or the whole concept behind the Building Bridges initiative is a good concept. The people backing it had a brilliant idea. And I still believe BBI is a good idea. The problem is how the narrative is being pushed. The reason why, number one, that the BBI is not popular on the ground, and I usually say this, if we invested on our institutions, because a lot of the people on the ground, they are either supporting or not supporting BBI based on what the politicians themselves have been saying. Not because they have gone through the document to actually see inside the document, is whatever they are propagating, is it right or is it wrong? How is it going to affect my future, and how is it going to benefit us as a people, you see? So I agree, we have to agree. There are contentious issues in the bill. There are things we don't have to agree, and it's in the nature of democracy. We will not always agree in each and everything. But I believe that the idea behind it is that we have a problem about, and truth be told, our politics is always centered on who has power. And that, I believe, is what BBI is trying to solve. Because I believe that because there's no need of us, even if we begin speaking about contentious issues, speaking about the economy, how are we going to achieve economic sustainability if we don't have a government that is well structured, or we still have political problems each and every time? After Uhuru got power in 2017, it was hard to govern the country.
I wish
So he
to
saw it.
disagree. I wish to disagree.
Before we
and register
continue,
my concerns.
before we
Yes.
continue with this interesting discussion, I hear the suited time, is it the actual time for us to be passing the bill coming up?
Yes.
And considering we have certain issues like the pandemic,
Yes.
like sorting out strikes from health workers and all these things. So, and also the pushing of the agenda, is it the right time, and is it a worthy cause at this moment? And before we continue, I would like our viewers to engage us in discussions in our platform, in our social media platform at JBN TV, and the hashtag is the compass. And you had something to say before we go on a break. Kindly resume.
In response to what he has said, I don't know which side he is, but I can.
Not on any particulars.
We shall go them by
We shall.
Wanajuana kwa virembo. So for me, I would say that first of all, in law we say we look at the motive of an issue. For instance, if you want to commit a crime, or the extent of the crime that you have committed, we look at the motives. The motives is the one, or the motive is the one that drives someone to a certain agenda. For me, if you ask me, if you sum up all the issues that have been happening since we started this process, for instance, the legislatures that were opposing the Amendment Bill 2020, majority of them, those who are very vocal and profound, opposing it, saying that, of course, our people, it is not in tandem with the current situation, have been thrown out of Jubilee, for instance. All MCAs have been hooked, in the county as well. Why? Because of supporting the bill. That's one. If you ask me, and I think the minds of every other people here, if you ask them, if at all you want to bring something good to me, why would you punish me if I don't support it? So you ask yourself, what is the motive behind pushing this document so much? Again, second, he has said, the members of county assemblies were bought 2 million grants. The reason behind buying them, if at all the document was good, it was supposed to be taken to the people and adopted. Thirdly, the people don't have the document yet. As the Constitution articulates, it says that public participation, it is very important in undertaking a national reform, whereby people ask, who the Constitution has recognized under the preamble, the sovereignty of the people. We are supposed to play part in public participation. We are engaging our masses in public participation, yet they have not seen the document. So if I sum up all those issues, the motive behind pushing the Amendment Bill 2020, the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020, I see the motive is not clear.
It is wrong.
It is shrouded.
Can I ask you a question on what you just said?
Mystery, and it is shrouded in mystery because even the budget that we will be using. Remember the other day, Right Honorable Amoro Odinga was asked by our medics, why are we coming up with a very costly agenda, yet we are dying we are the front line workers, we are dying because of PPEs, and you don't have them. He told them, what did he tell them? He told them that you are not the only people who are dying, you have to wait. Why is BBI a must when some other people are dying? So the motive behind it, and I think I will explain later, it is not clear.
And before we continue with the discussion, we would like to go on a studio break. And for our viewers, don't forget to follow us. Don't forget to push on your discussions at JBN TV, hashtag the compass. We will come back to understand the motive behind the pushing of the BBI.
Praise God. God, church. We are here to welcome you for our amazing March conference.
The theme of our conference this month comes from the book of 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 16. Pray without ceasing.
And the conference starts on Tuesday the 2nd, running over to Sunday the 7th, and our morning glory starts at 6 a.m.
Our lunch hour starts at 12:45 p.m.
and our evening service starts at 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m.
A man of God once said, you can be a prophet, you can be an evangelist, but without a prayer life you will eventually dry and wither. Prayer is the key to opening every single door in your life, and without it nothing happens. You want something to happen in your life, come to the conference and see what God will do in your life.
My name is Marian Karaoke.
I am Pastor Major.
That the Lord shall bring rain. He says, I will bring the former rain and the latter rain in the first month. Things that we knew, this is the season of God, but they did not happen. And today I stand here to say, delay is not denial. Your wilderness has come to an end. Your dryness has come to an end. Every blessing that belongs unto us, let it begin to rain upon our lives this day. I decree this morning that the heavens are open and it has begun raining upon us. The season when our land was not producing anything, the seasons are over. But from this day, it's raining upon our lives. Wakati wa mvua, vitu vyote vinamea pamoja. Katika jina la Yesu Kristo, let there be productivity upon our lives.
Praise God, church. We are here to welcome you for our amazing March conference.
The theme of our conference this month comes from the book of 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 16. Pray without ceasing.
And the conference starts on Tuesday the 2nd, running over to Sunday the 7th, and our morning glory starts at 6 a.m.
Our lunch hour starts at 12:45 p.m.
and our evening service starts at 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m.
A man of God once said, you can be a prophet, you can be an evangelist, but without a prayer life you will eventually dry and wither. Prayer is the key to opening every single door in your life, and without it nothing happens. You want something to happen in your life, come to the conference and see what God will do in your life.
My name is Marian Karaoke.
I am Pastor Major.
Welcome back, viewer, to this interesting discussion that we've been having concerning the BBI report and the referendum. And before we went on a break, the points that came up that were of interest, something that we needed to expound on. Is it really time for us to be considering an amendment of the Constitution? And concerning the issues that have arisen with time, for example, the pandemic, and also the understanding of the BBI report to the local and the common mwananchi, and to conclude the motive of the passing of the BBI. And I would like to call upon Hope to continue with.
Thank you so much. I wanted to respond to some few things my brother here was saying. Very concrete, sound, and I tend to agree with some, but I also have some questions. He has said, number one, the document is not there on the people. I want to ask him, he's a youth leader. How did you get access to the document?
First of all, let me say that, of course, we have to understand. I'm not calling myself a youth elite, but having gone to campus, having an access of a gadget, it is not a privilege of majority of young people in this country.
Thank you.
And for your understanding, we are counting more than 10 million young people with no employment,
yes,
whether employable or not. So meaning their economic capacity cannot allow them, for instance, to have a phone and download the document like I have done. You see, so when you talk about majority or mass or citizens undertaking a national conversation, it means that even those who are not in a position to have a gadget and download the document can have a physical document or that paper to read, consult, and be taken through public participation, whether by the county assembly members, as it was supposed to happen, or even other legislature, maybe members of parliament, senators also. So we don't have that accord coming from the proponents of BBI deciding that before we undertake our people through public participation like it happened, we needed first of all to avail the document to them. So for me, my position could be different from them. That I have capacity to accept the document, but for them, because of their political position or capacity, they are not in a position.
Okay, I want to respond. Wait,
let me 2 seconds. I want to add something that he has said.
Okay.
As a youth leader again, I personally had forums here in Nairobi. We went further and asked the task force to help us with documents. Do you know what they told us? Tuna document, and then mtafute online. How many documents can you access online for BBI?
Let me respond.
Most of us, we have read more than 3 documents, different, for BBI. Until I think it was the last time that the president was signing a signature. That is when we had even it's not the final document. Wait after this, you will see the final document. Yes.
Now, I want to respond because you've been saying that the document has not been made available to the people.
Public.
Number one,
yes.
You've said very well, you accessed it.
Yes.
Through, first of all,
yes.
through the internet or
yes.
through the website that has been provided. So number one, it is very false to say that people don't have access.
I think first of all,
is through the government website.
I don't want an opinion.
Access we have.
I don't
it's
want
not
a
an
contradiction.
It's not
I don't want an opinion which is contradicting to go on record. First of all, let us all be clear here. Yes. Everyone knows we can try to be academic about this matter, but everyone knows people don't have document. Even our members of parliament who are in the process, the county assembly members who are part of the process, they can tell you confidently that people don't. But because we know, for instance, if we are undertaking a constitutional process like 2010 constitution, when we were coming up or promulgating the constitution, I believe if you called in your village, they could have told you that they have the document, the constitution, the draft constitution, you remember. It was written people to the villages because that's how it is supposed to be undertaken. So don't use my point to say that because for me I have capacity to access the document online, that now it has been dispelled to the public. That will be misleading. That will be misleading. That will be very false and misleading.
You should not have this discussion. Let's bring sanity in this.
It is very sad. The only thing I want us not to do is to go on record. To go on record.
You're very understood.
See, it's very unfortunate that at this level, where the document has already been passed in the counties. No. We're still discussing public participation. Because in a modern democracy that we are living in, because we are very fortunate as a country that we can ask questions in Africa. In a modern democracy, our politics should be played in the public sphere. Because you cannot create a public opinion without involving the people. You see? So, is it true that the document is out of the ground? Yes. But now we need to make sure that we hold these people into account. This is the reason there is need for civic education on the ground.
Yes.
Not just because we are trying to get the young people to get involved in politics, and that is more of political education. The reason why we cannot add salaries to the doctors is because of politics, because the current government has maybe, let me not go to that first.
But can I add?
But we need to.
The government has spent over 10 million printing documents that you haven't seen.
You see, the thing is,
I wanted just to make sure to know that you already have used money printing papers that we haven't seen.
We have. So
personally, I haven't seen.
This is what I'm saying, that these people that are forerunners should be holding to account and come and tell the people on the ground that this is what is in the document, because the ones that are saying yes or the ones that are saying no, we should know why are they saying this. Why they are saying this based on what? Because if you cannot come and, because I don't like how politics is done in Kenya with a sense of entitlement. A certain group of people think that they can come and control a narrative and force some things down the citizen throats. And also there are other people that are against the document. They should come. I think I'm neutral, and I hope I'm making sense.
Okay, let me just to anchor that
continue.
statement of the availability of a document. If you read Article 35 of the Constitution, it talks about access to information.
Yes.
It is not a privilege, and I want this to go on record. It is not a privilege, it is a right for every Kenyan who is a taxpayer in this country. Every agenda which is being undertaken, and especially a national agenda, every member, apart from civic education again, which is anchored in the Constitution, as a constitutional right, they should be availed with materials. If the members of parliament go there to talk about BBI, they should, even members of public should have access to that document. So when a member of parliament is talking about BBI, they already have a paper to refer.
Right.
You understand?
Right.
So it is their right to have that document, and they don't have current.
And before we continue with this discussion, we were talking about the referendum. The referendum requires all of the citizens of Kenya's participation, right? And now at this moment, we are a few months, if not to say weeks, down into the referendum, and we are still talking about civic education. And we are talking about 41 counties who have agreed to the passing of the BBI. So how do we mitigate this? How do we come down now to the people who do not have this document? How do we manage? Whose responsibility is it? As at now, yes, those people, the people initiating BBI have failed up to now to give access to the document. Now, whose responsibility, as at now, with the many number of counties that have agreed to BBI and with the looking down to referendum, whose responsibility is it, and how do we deal with this before then?
To me, I will think this way. Yeah. First, I will answer, the motive was not right for the BBI. I have read the document.
Right.
The only article or only sub-article, I will say is a sub because it's not the majority, that need to go to referendum. It's one, the change of leadership of the country, introducement of the IBC, the Prime Minister position. The others, according, I think the lawyers will agree with me, the other, they can be ascended in Parliament. We have the bill, this one, the 35%. It was taken to the Parliament by Mheshimiwa Kangata. The story of the youth holiday, the youth help, it was taken in Parliament, actually I think in the second reading by Gideon Keter, about coffee and all these things. They're in Parliament. Why do we need them in the BBI? That is number one. So the motive of us having a BBI is not the right motive. We need to know first, what is the reason of us having a referendum now? We have changed and added our constitution. I think that is right. Because of the amendments in the Parliament, one. Number two, I think there was one of commissions that was spearheading the implementation of the constitution. Yeah? So, number one, the motive was not right. Number two, us going forward, we are going to discuss a discussion that I would say is not important, but it is important at the wrong important time. This time we need to discuss on how do we increase the number of jobs in our society. How do we stop importing toothpick? How do we stop importing toothbrush? How do we stop importing tissue papers? These are the conversations that we need to do to bring out. How do you bring an environment of Kenyans having their own business and thriving? Because right now, I'll tell you, alone, the SGR, it's a very good project, but 40,000 young people in Nairobi have lost their job. Because of that, only the SGR that we are having. Those are the conversations we need to discuss. These people that have been jobless, how do we make them job? How do you give them a job?
I think it's unfortunate because you cannot really describe, development will always come. Times are changing.
Yes.
And one thing that you've said, and I think you're right, there are certain industries that are dying and are already dead in the country. We should make sure that the only conversation, as I said earlier, should be based on how do we revive the economy. And the only way we revive an economy in a developing country like Kenya is with maybe agriculture, trying to create better industry capacity and all. But the question is, if this document, the intention of the document is intended to, because it's a building, bridges
But it had destroyed
so
how
that
many
means that
bridges?
this economy is meant to give us, is it a procedure of sharing the national cake in a fair and favorable manner? But the cake that we are sharing is not there.
For me, I
That's the
think
problem.
the structures have been set. The structures have been set on how to share the national cake. We have the county. We have the county government. We have
We
the
are sharing a
county.
cake that is not there.
We have the county government. First of all, we have a budget. We have a physical budget that we normally read and approve. We have a budget.
On loan.
Yes. What have we been giving the county as a
Budget
county
on loan.
government if we don't have a budget? We have a budget. To answer your question, you asked about whose fault it is for lack of civic education.
Yeah, and how do we
And
take
materials,
accountability?
and how do we
at this
undertake the
moment?
accountability?
Right.
I think in the process of lawmaking or amendment of the constitution, as the procedure, the way they did it was very important. Coming up with a task force, task force that is inclusive of politicians or political leaders, giving people or personnel who have capacity to steer or to steer a national conversation. So we have a task force already. And of course, a task force that is which has been budgeted for. They have a budget, and of course, which is under the arm of government, which is executive. For me, I would say that everyone in Kenya trusts, or everyone in Kenya is looking up for the task force to initiate such processes. But again, you have to look at the task force. The task force is as a result of our politician coming up and giving names of those people who are sitting there. So again, they are just puppets of puppeteers. Puppeteers are behind the curtain. So the task force doesn't have the ultimate mandate of maybe saying, first of all, let's prioritize on public participation, issuing the document to the ground. So the task force is there by the constitution. But now the problem is, the task force doesn't have capacity to tell leaders, because it is just
It's not an independent.
Yeah. So for me, I would think those who are behind the process, and actually I have to look at the top principles. Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga and the President of the Republic of Kenya, who is Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. We are undertaking a process that is not the first time, because we have had there before other processes. And actually, I think after every election, I think we normally have a reform process. If you go and read our history, we normally undertake a reform process after every election. And the procedure is, first of all, if the members of public are participating, if it is about educating the people about voting and all that, the IBC is directly responsible for undertaking that civic education and providing materials and logistics required. On this is a bit unique because we are undertaking an amendment of the constitution, which we have to have a task force. But again, task force, for it to have the strength, it has to be non-partisan. But at this point and juncture, the task force is very partisan. It is serving the interest of certain individuals. That's why it doesn't have capacity to say, first of all, before we engage our people on the grassroots in public participation, like they did the other day, we need to avail the materials to them. So for me, I would say that the buck stops with the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta, of which they have failed because our public or the citizens of this country, they have already undertaken that process of public participation, and the bill is being passed in. So for me, I think we have taken the advantage of the ignorance of the masses. that they don't know the processes, they don't know whether they are supposed to have the document, yet they have been undertaken through a process. For me, I think it is that's why I talked about the motive of the whole thing, the way it is being hurried up, the way we are not following the procedure, the constitutional procedure. So for me, I think even the amendment of the Constitution 2010, it is unconstitutional by itself, because the Constitution, under the preamble, it talks about the sovereignty of the people, the power of the people, and then the supremacy of the Constitution. But if we separate those two, or we use one in isolation of the other, we are not doing it the right way. So the process of the BBI, it is unconstitutional. Second one, influencing people, aiding people to vote for BBI. Like we saw by the members of County Assembly, how they were promised to be given, 2 million grant, which is yet to be processed. I think also it is unconstitutional by that manner, because you cannot buy someone into, supporting an idea which is their political right, or you cannot bribe people in supporting an idea which is a political right. And I think Article 38 of the Constitution talk about political rights. Everyone rights and freedoms. It is your right, whether you are a farmer or a dairy farmer, whether you are a peasant farmer, it is your right to undertake a national conversation when having the civic education and the document that is being talked about.
And keeping in the constraints of time, as we come to wind down a conclusion to this discussion, I know it is something that has to continue going on and on and on. I would like us to, each and every one of you, to give us a sum up, a parting shot with each a minute to this discussion. We probably have not really exhausted the topic, but a parting shot from each as we come to a conclusion of the show. I would start with Brian.
Thank you. I think we should not use tyrannical measures to push public democracy objective. Because we've reached in a point as a nation where we've managed to enjoy freedom of speech and freedom of information and a lot of other things. So at this point, we should not be driving the country backward. Let's be inclusive. If there's a party that thinks that they're being undermined, bring them on the table. They're Kenyans. Let's respect the rule of law. Because if we have a constitution that is present, that is not being respected, it is not automatic that the next constitution that we are trying to bring on board will be respected. Right. So we think that we've not already exhausted what we have, but we are trying to get another document that is ambiguous and more very complex for even the people that we want to educate on to comprehend. It's very impossible at this point to change the narrative anyway. So what I would like maybe the guys spearheading this, the motions and the bills and everything to do is to make sure that at least there's inclusivity, because we need to share the country, we need to create that safeness in diversity, and to know that nobody has the monopoly of ideas. They should be able to include all the parties, every Kenyan, to the table. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, I think I'll join Brian, and I think even despite our different opinions on the whole process, something that we always have to agree is, one, we must fight for the sovereignty of the constitution also, because if truth be told, if they right now they cannot follow due process in bringing amendments, how can they also safeguard that the amendments they are going to bring, that they are also going to uphold the same amendments? We have been having since 2010, 2010 constitution is still a virgin constitution. There are many more things that also need, we are yet to even take up to. So I believe also for the proponents of the BBI or even the initiators, I agree with Moses. They have the responsibility to make this thing available. The way they have said, the way they made it available with the Constitution. And this is why I always insist, we need to empower our state institutions. Because right now, our state institutions would have been the right people to channel through our chiefs, our county commissioners. They will be now, they're the ones now held, because during the constitutional time, they are the people who were coming to the ground. So I think that even the political elite, the problem with our country is that the political elite tends to overshadow a lot of things. So I think we need we need to start looking at our political strata altogether. And finally, I think Kenya, we need statesmanship, not politicians. Because if we have statesmen, we'll have men who are going to fight for the genuine need of the Kenyans, not fight for their own interest. So I believe Kenya as a whole, even with the BBI, what we need is statesmanship and not politicians.
Thank you. Yes, Mundia, before we go to Moses to conclude.
I will not agree with the hope here. The constitution is still virgin, because we have seen what has happened in this constitution already. It's in the ICU, because it has happened. Number one, if it's all about the reforms of this constitution or the spirit of the constitution, we need to appoint judges. The president has refused to appoint judges. It's constitutional right for us to have judges. It's our constitutional right in Nairobi to have a by-election. We are not having a by-election. Why? Because it's the so-called people who are saying it's constitutional. We are doing referendum. We are not following the right procedure. The county commissioners you hear, they're in office illegally. We have CAS illegally in the office. So let's say the president should call this country to an end, the constitution to an end, and we just live as a monkey society.
He has given his opinion, but I wouldn't say that we say so,
We should jail him for that.
You want to overthrow the constitution? So
we are not following it. Yes. What is important to us having it?
Let me start my conclusion.
Yes.
By first of all saying that it is very important, and it is very important if touched on national unity. At Article 10 of the Constitution, it talks about national unity. Yeah. And as you all know, is that the symbol of national unity is the president. Mm-hmm. And I think the issue of handshake came to be when the president thought it is important for us to come together and maybe have a national conversation toward peace, and sustainability. But again, like they have said, which is very important, already the process is disuniting or disintegrating Kenyans as we speak about the bill. And then secondly, I support Modia by saying that already we have an overthrow of the constitution, and you have seen all of you. I don't want to ask personally, but you people, you can say, starting with Nairobi County, I don't say that I support Sonko and his tendencies of operating, but I would say that if what happened to Sonko happened to Iguru, I think people would be in more peace than before. But now the constitution was not followed. Only the deputy governor to be appointed and to be sworn in, waiting to be sworn in as a governor, is only the court that is so fit to stop the process. So we are talking about overthrowing the constitution up to this point. So, like you have asked, can we trust these people who are overthrowing the constitution or undertaking the mutilation of the constitution? Can we trust these people to spearhead the amendment of the constitution and also to protect whatever will be passed? For me, I say we cannot, because already we are not following due process. Just to put your words, we are not following due process. Due process is people and everyone in Kenya should undertake a national conversation. How? Civic education, providing for materials. We have not seen that happening. And then to finish, I want to say that, of course, we have to look at other democracies around the world, because, of course, Kenya is a democratic country, and we have a constitution to show that. All the other nations, what they are doing, they are capitalizing on what is the most essential. Give people food, give people health, and Medicare, give people shelter. It is also by the articulated in our constitution that no one should die because of lack of food, lack of access to, basic education and health. Yet, we have people, the government, the issue of KEMSA, for instance, we saw it coming. And majority of people are waiting, for instance, because there are masks coming, that will be provided with the mask. Majority have died because of lack of mask. Others are dying because of lack of food. So for me, I think the motive behind this amendment of the constitution, it is not right. The motive is not clear. The motive is shrouded in mystery. That's why majority of Kenyans are not in support of the. You understand? And if it is about a uniting Kenya, why would you remove people from their political positions because of opposing a national conversation? It is your political right under Article 38 of the Constitution. So for me, I tell Kenyans to be very cautious about the amendment of Bill 2020. I tell them to be cautious.
Thank
them to be cautious.
Thank you for joining us today in this conversation. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Moses, Sam, and Hope.
Thank you so much.
And I think this is a conversation that we need to have again and again until we get the anchor of it, until we go to the main thing. And to our viewers, thank you for joining us. This has been The Compass, and I have been your host, Antonia Ngaiwa. And remember to keep the main thing the main thing. Thank you.